If you're still in the middle of your personal Amidah, please take as long as you need. Otherwise, page 300 for Kaddish Shalem, followed by Elenu.
And last call for Lulav and Etrog.
Yitgadal v'kadash merabah ve'amad divra kirtei ve'mlik machutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaydechol beit Yisrael v'agalav v'zman karivim ramein Yehei shmira mevarach l'lam me'al maya yibarach v'ishtabach v'yipar v'yitramah minaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalash me'kedush abrichu le'ela min kol berachata v'sherata tishbachata v'nechamata me'al b'amav v'yimru amen tikabel tzad honu ma'honu chol Yisrael kodom uvonu v'shmai v'yimru amen Yehei shlam rav v'shmaya v'chim alen v'chol Yisrael v'yimru amen Shalom, Shalom, Amen. 301.
Alenu leshabeach ladon hakol latek gedila leotzer breshi shelo asanu gegoye haratzo velo samanu kamishbahot hadama shelo sam halkenu kahem vegor alenu keho hamona Vanachnu korim umistahavim umadim lifnei melech malchei malchim hakadosh baruch hu shehu noteh shamayim beyosed haaretz umoshe vikaro bashamayim imal ushvi natuzo begave meromim hu Eloheinu Eino Ememokenu Efesulato Kakatu Betorato Vedatayom Ve'ashevota Elevabecha Ki Adonai Hu Elohim Bashamayim Imal Ve'ahoretz mitachad eno. Kakatu b'tortecha Adonai imloch le'olam ba'ed v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai le'melech al kol ha'aretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo
echad. And we remain standing as we support the mourners and those observing Yartzei with Mourners Kaddish, page 302. Yit gadal v'yit kadash me'rabah ve'alma divra kirutei ve'amlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayedechol beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach la'alam olam me'al amaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudesha brichu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. You may be seated. One of the features of Shabbat of a holiday is that we kind of imagine that we are entertaining Sukkot, the guests of Sukkot. And then along comes Shabbat, which we want to go greet, and usually with a lot of pomp and circumstance. But it would be kind of insulting to the guests of Sukkot to go and leave our guests away and run off to greet Shabbat. So there's a custom that we don't do the pomp and circumstance of Kabbalat Shabbat on a Shabbat of a holiday, of Chol HaMoed. So we don't have a lengthy Kabbalat Shabbat service. So in lieu of doing Kabbalat Shabbat now and then doing a sermon, we're going to do the sermon now. Further complications is I would normally talk about how Rabbi Konigsberg is very wise and patient and whatnot. But you'd be thinking that I'd be talking about myself, but I am not. My dad, Rabbi Konigsberg, is going to honor us with running the Devar Torah, the sermon today, and I think he has a little story prepared. But it's my honor to call on my father, my teacher, Rabbi Konigsberg, Randall Konigsberg, Rabbi Konigsberg the senior. That doesn't sound nice either. Rabbi Konigsberg 1.0, the OG.
Shabbat Shalom. So there's a little town in Russia, and they received word that the Tsar had determined that they had to leave. They were being removed from town. The town was being abandoned, and they had to leave. And they didn't know what to do. I mean, this was their town. This was their home. What are they supposed to do? How could this happen to them? And so they did the only thing they could possibly think of to do is they went and consulted the Baal Shem Tov, the great mystical and leader of the Hasidic movement, and asked him what they should do. Should they concede to this? Is there any way to change what's going on? What should we do? And they sent this delegation. The delegation went to see the Baal Shem Tov, and he looked at them and he said, if you want to stay, the only person you can send to St. Petersburg to plead your case is Moshe the Melamed, the teacher of the kids in religious school. He was an old man, been doing it for God knows how many years. And they came back and they reported, the Baal Shem Tov says we should send Moshe. And they looked at me and says, Moshe? I mean, he speaks Russian, I guess, but, he doesn't really, he's not a politician. He's not, how is he going to speak to these big ministers in St. Petersburg? How is he supposed to do that? And they said, maybe we should send somebody else. And the delegation looked at them and said, look, you sent us to the Baal Shem Tov to find an answer to this problem. And he says, send Moshe. So send Moshe. So I said, well, he won't be able to go alone. He's too old for that. So they sent a younger man with him to help with the luggage and to help with the transport and make sure everything was going well. And off to St. Petersburg he went. Now you have to remember, at this particular time, Jews were not allowed in St. Petersburg. This was a place that was totally closed to Jews, which means, of course, that the Jews that lived in St. Petersburg were completely and totally undercover. Now, these were people who were involved in the government in some way or another, and nobody knew that they were Jewish. And somehow he found his way to one of these homes, and they let him in, and they said to him, what are you doing here? And he said, I'm here to speak to the Minister of the Interior to save my town from being abandoned, from being destroyed. And they said, well, the only person you could see about that, he said, I need to see the Minister of the Interior. He said, Ivan Ivanovich? And they said, yeah. He said, that's who I'm supposed to see. That's what it says here. I'm supposed to see him. He says, he hasn't talked to anybody. No, I mean, he certainly is not going to talk to you. I mean, that's like impossible. And he said, well, I don't know. All I can tell you is that's what I'm here to do. So they said, well, you're going to have to write a letter to him. And so they wrote out this letter saying that this Moshe from this town has come to see him about an issue regarding his town, without any hope at all that we're going to get any reply whatsoever. And the next day they got a reply. It said, he should show up at my office tomorrow at 10 a.m. The people who were there were shocked. They said, wow, he said that and so quickly. I mean, wow, that's something. Wow, that'll be interesting to see how that turns out. So next morning at 10 a.m., Moshe goes to the Ministry of the Interior and goes to see Ivan Ivanovich, and he goes in and he shows his invitation to the guard at the door. The guard at the door takes him to the office, and the secretary for the minister looks at it and says, sure, and he takes him into the office, sits him down in a chair. And the Minister of the Interior comes in, sits down at his desk, takes a good hard look at Moshe, gets up from his desk and walks out of the room. Moshe said, what was that all about? But it doesn't take very long to figure out what's going to happen. What happens almost immediately is two very big armed policemen come in, take Moshe by the arms, drag him outside to the courtyard in the middle of the building where there's a small little chapel, and there's a Russian Orthodox priest who's standing there. There's a little fire going in the corner with a little pot on it, and this Russian Orthodox priest looks at him and says, look, Moshe, you got a choice. He says, you can either convert to Christianity right now and kiss this icon that I'm holding in my hand, or we're going to pour hot lead down your throat and you're going to die here today. That's your choice. Decide what you want to do. He said, but what did I do? I mean, I don't understand. I was invited. What's going? I said, it doesn't matter, Moshe. Doesn't matter at all. This is the choice you have to make. Make your choice. Moshe, but look, I was born a Jew. I was raised a Jew. I've been teaching Judaism all my life. I'm not going anywhere now. No. I'm going to have, whatever you do to me, you'll do to me, but no, I can't leave my Judaism. I can't. I just can't. I said, okay. And the two policemen grab him and push him down to the floor, and they take the pot off this little fire that's burning, and they force his mouth open, and they pour the pot into his mouth. It's honey, warm honey. And I'm like, what? And the two policemen pick him up off the ground. They carefully dust him all off. The priest comes up and shakes his hand. He says, that amount of faith I don't think I've ever seen in my life. You're an amazing man, Moshe. And the two policemen very carefully and gently lead him back to the minister's office. And the minister comes in and says, I know what he said, you just had a extraordinarily moment of faith and a moment that has disturbed you greatly. I'm going to give you a chance to ponder that for a little bit. He said, but I want to tell you, first of all, from the minute I got your letter the other day, he said, I sent word out that your town is not to be touched. So that's done. He said, that I don't want you to worry about that. That's not something you need to concern yourself with anymore. That has been taken care of. But he said, just settle for a minute. He said, I only have one question to ask you. I said, sure, what? And he says, have you ever in your life taught a child that wasn't Jewish? Moshe looked at me and said, I teach children Hebrew. I teach them to pray. I teach them Torah. He said, why would somebody who's not Jewish be in my class? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I know. I even said, I understand that. But have you ever taught a student that wasn't Jewish? He said, how could that even possibly be? I mean, it's nothing against children. He said, but that's not what I teach. How would somebody who's not Jewish? He said, think hard, Moshe. Have you ever had a student that wasn't Jewish? And he said, no. He said, no, I don't think so. He said, well, actually, there was this one kid. His father abandoned them, and the mother ran off, and he was left alone and an orphan. And we took him in for a while, but about 6 months after we got him, his grandfather, who apparently was very wealthy, came looking for him, and we sent him off, to live with his grandfather. But that's the only kid who was ever, non-Jewish that was even in my house. And Moshe stopped and he looked at Ivan and he says, that was you? And Ivan looks at him and says, yeah, Moshe, that was me. My grandfather was very wealthy. He took me home and put me in the best schools and got me the best connections. And I've risen now to Minister of the Interior. That's what's happened to me. But I never, ever forgot that when nobody else in that town would take me in, you took me in. You took me in, and you fed me, and you gave me a place to sleep, and you included me in your classes. He said, I didn't know any of this stuff, but you included me. You let me sit with all the other boys, as if I was part of what was going on there. I never, ever forgot that. So when you sent me that letter, and I realized that I would have you here in my office, I began to think, what could I reward him with? What could I give him? There's nothing he needs. He's just a teacher, and he has everything that he could possibly want. What could I give him? And I remember that you said this thing that one of the things about being Jewish was when the going got really, really tough, that it was an act of faith to continue and not give up on your faith. And I decided that I would show you how strong your faith is. And that's this toast that I gave you today. And you'll leave here knowing that no matter what, a Jew you are and a Jew you'll always be. And I'm proud to have been a part of your household for that small amount of time. And as long as I'm the Minister of the Interior, nobody will touch your town. Period. Sukkot is an international holiday. It's a time that we do things not just for ourselves, but for the entire world. For all the 70 nations of the world, we take the time to remember them, to think about them, and to wish for them to have a successful year as well. It doesn't change anything that we do, and we certainly live in a time of great anti-Semitism now, where we wonder sometimes how much that world out there really even cares about us altogether. But a whole town was saved because of the love that one person had for a little boy. We can talk all we want about hate. We can talk all we want about the horrible things that are going on in the world, especially in the Jewish world, in this country and in other countries. We can talk about it all we want. But hate is not going to go away because we talk about it, and hate is not going to go away if we hate them back. The only way we can make hate go away is by caring and loving others as much as we care for ourselves. That is our goal. And I admit it right off the bat, it's not easy. I admit it right off the bat that that is not something that you can do every single day. But you can say hello to your neighbor. You can care about him when he goes into the hospital or goes into a period of mourning. You can do that for your neighbor. You can do that for people at work. You can do it in a microcosm, a tiny little microcosm. You can just say, I'm going to love this person. I'm going to care about this person. I'm going to have compassion for this person. And I don't know what it'll get me. I have no idea what it'll happen to me. Any more than Moshe understood just by taking in a little kid. I had no place else to go, what would become of it. But those little things are not forgotten. Those little acts of love and kindness are never forgotten. And they stand as a fence against hate. Love is always our best defense. And on this international holiday of Sukkot, where we take the time to think about everyone, no matter what nation they belong to, let's give a little love from our hearts and send it out into the world. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi Konigsberg. Now I know there are two excellent Rabbi Konigsbergs in the world, possibly even three. We're gonna now light Shabbat candles.
Page 27. Mizmor Shir Le'yom HaShabbat Tov Lehodol Adonai Tov Lehodol Adonai Uzamer Leshimcha Elyon Tov Lehodol Adonai Lehagid Baboker Chazdecha Lehagid Baboker Chazdecha Vemunatcha Baleilot Tov Lehodol Adonai. Tzadika tamar yifra ke'erez bavanon yiske shetulim beveit Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenuvun beseva deshenim berananim iyu lehagid ki ashar Adonai tzuri velo avlatabo. 29. Adonai malach lavesh lavesh Adonai ozita zaraf tikon tevel bal timoth. Mikolod ma'im rabim adirim mishpereyam adir bamarom Adonai edotecha nemnu meo levetcha nava kodesh Adonai leorech yamim. Before we say Morning's Kaddish, and have yartzites being observed this season of the year. Today we recall the yartzeit of Hyman Erkin, and this week we recall the yartzites of Helen Edelman, Lois Einstein, Stanley Freed, Betty Lesh, Marvin Lesser, Judy Perlin, Milton Perry, Rose Zensky, Sam Arov, Jenny Blaze, Lester Cortland, Idella Dana, Claire Daft, Milton Freed, Samuel Mautner, Sylvia Nankin, Al Sowers, Sol Shapiro, Simon Weitz, Rivka Rybrovnik, Nathan Lewis Cohen, Morris Gelbaum, Max Mason, Evelyn Mayer, Zelda Alton, Bernard Blaze, Arthur Halpern, Joseph Lazarus, Philip Morris, Frank Rubinson, Ben Sukinek, Ruth Aronson, Bill Becker, Barry Brodkin, Larry Capital, Jacob Steinman, Alfred Davis, Selma Dritz, Claire Ellison, Ray Garfinkel, Joseph Goodstein, Harold Gorvey, Max May, Francis Miller, Leah Papaustin, Yehuda Rosenblatt, Rose Toporek, Barney Blumenfeld, May Broder, Saul Feldman, Sylvia Lazarus, Evelyn Lefkoff, Rose Rittner, Laura Frank, Florence Harris, Lillian Shabbat, Rose Silverman, and Ethel Wynn. We'll keep all of those names in our prayers. We remain standing as we support the mourners and those observing Yartzeit. Mourners Kaddish, page 30. Yit Gadal, V'yit Kadash, Merabah, Ve'alma, Divra, Kirute, Ve'amlich, Malchute, Ve'chayechon, V'yomechon, V'chayei Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'galal, V'zman Kari, V'imru Amen, Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach, La'alam Lal Me'alamaya, Yit Barach, V'yishtabach, V'yit Pa'ar, V'yitramam, V'yit Naseh, V'tadar, V'taleh, V'talal, Shmei Dekudesh Shabrichu, Leila min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim alinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav hu ya'aseh shalom alinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Remain standing for our evening service, page 39a. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Amvorach Leolam Vaed. May be seated. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidbaro mariva. Umavir yom mevi laila mavil miyom uvein laila Adonai tzvo shemo echai v'kayam tamidim lo chalenu leolam vaed. Baruch Adonai Hamari Varavim. 40. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amchavta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadeta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shofeinu uvkumeinu nasiach b'chukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ואורך ימינו. ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה, ועבדך אל תסתיר ממנו לעולמים. ברך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, והיה עם שמות ישמעו את השם. Adonai Elohechem Emed V'emunah Kazov V'kiyam Alinu Ki Adonai Eloheinu Ben Zilatov V'nachni Yisrael Amo. U'machuto b'ratzon kiblu aleihem Moshe Miriam B'nai Shalachanu Shira B'simcha Rabba V'yamru Chulam Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh, norati lo dosef ele, malchutecha ra'uvanecha, bokeh yam lifnim Moshe ze'lianu ve'amru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar, ki v'ad Adonai Yaakov, u'goel omid chazak mimenu, baruch atah Adonai, Kal Yisrael, Hashivinu Adonai L'Shalom, Va'amidim Makinu L'Chaim, U'Verosalim Sekat Shlomecha, V'Chakim B'Tzat Avav Mofanecha V'Yishin L'Man Shemecha. U'Shmor Tzeitenu, U'Voinu L'Chaim U'L'Shalom, Me'ata V'Yad Olam, U'Fros Alinu Sukat Shalomecha, Baruch Atah Adonai, HaPares Sukat Shalom Alinu V'Chol Amo Yisrael, V'al Yerushalayim. Those comfortable doing so, rise 46. V'shameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, v'dorotam berit olamai, Beni uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, ki sheshet yamim, asa Adonai et hashamayim, v'et haaretz, uvayom hashvi, Shabbat vayinafash, Yitgadal v'yitkadash me'raba be'alma divra kirute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayedecho b'et Yisrael ba'agala uv'yizman kariv yimeru. Amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach Le'alam u'la'alem me'alem maya V'yisbach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shmei lekudesha, Brichu leila min kol berchata, v'shirata, tushbechata, v'nechamata, damiran be'alma, v'meru. Amen. The Amidah is a time for personal prayer, beginning on page 47 through page 52. Again, it is still Sukkot. Please remember to add Ya'aleh V'yavo on page 50. If you're still in the middle of your personal prayers, please take as long as you need. Otherwise, we continue page 53. Vayechulu Hashemayim ba'aretz v'chol tzavaham, vayechal Elohim b'yom hashvi melachto asher asa, vayishpot b'yom hashvi mikol melachto asher asa, vayivarech Elohim et yom hashvi vayikadesh oto, ki bo shabbat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim asa, baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El HaGadol, HaGibor, v'Hanora, El Elyon, Koneh Shamayim v'Aretz, Magen Avo bidvaro, Mechayev Metim, B'ma'amaro, El HaKadosh, Ein Kamohu, Hameniach le'amo b'yom Shabbat kodsho, Kivam ratza lehaniach lahem, Kivam ratza lehaniach lahem, Lefanav navod b'yirav v'pachad, V'nodeh lishmo b'chol yom tamid, Me'ein ha'berachot. El Shalom. Mekadesh HaShabbat u'mavarech Shavi. Umeniach bigdusha liamedu shnei oneg. Zecher lemase v'reishi. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu retzei v'menuchatenu. Kadeshenu b'mitzvotecha v'tein chelkenu b'toratecha. Sabeinu mituvecha v'samechenu b'shuatecha v'taher libeinu le'ovdecha be'emet v'hagrilenu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava uvratzon Shabbat kodshecha ve'anuchu v'Yisrael Mekadeshei shemecha baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat 54 Yigadav Yigadav Shemei Rabbah ve'amadi v'rakirte ve'amlik machate ve'chayechoni ve'mechonu v'chaydecho b'Yit Yisrael ba'agalav izman krivi meru Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach Le'olam u'la'olam me'olam maya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yitman v'naseh v'yidadar v'yidalev v'yidalas Shmei Kudisha Brichu le'ela min kol berachata v'sherata tishbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen tikabal tzlod hon v'od hon u'cho Yisrael kodam v'honi v'shmaya v'imru Amen yehei shlam rav min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen oseh shalom b'imramav v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. We'll postpone Kiddush till the Sukkah after services. We turn to page 56 for Aleinu. Well done. We remain standing as we support the mourners and those observing Yartzeit after we recite Psalm 27 on page 59. Le David na'arivi shimi mi rad na'mi otzchai mimi v'chad v'krav alai merim l'chavasran. Im tekem alai melchama v'zot ani b'teach v'chashal temid Adonai yafta v'keshit v'tomei v'chal v'chal Adonai v'chalo ki yatzpenini v'sukhi. Ashir abazim Adonai shvanai Lulei hamati l'raptu b'Adonai beretz chayim kavel Adonai chazak v'yames libecha v'kavel Adonai. Mourners Kaddish 58. Yitgadal v'yitkadash merabah, be'alma divra kirutei ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayedech ol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'yizman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach la'alam me'alamaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei nekudesha brichu, Leila min kol berchata v'shirata tishbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen. Shkoyach. May be seated. A couple of announcements. First of all, Mazav Tov to Abigail Wilker, her parents Dov and Julie Jacobson. Her grandparents Simone Wilker and Beverly Jacobson are her bat mitzvah tomorrow morning. To Micah Feldman, his parents Jennifer and Jonathan, and grandparents Patty Wasserman and Lawrence Feldman and Barry Golden. On Micah's bar mitzvah on Sunday morning, and that is a 9:30 service. There is no 8:45 minyan on Sunday morning. And Mazal Tov to Diane and Abe Taché on the birth of their great-granddaughter. Mazal Tov to Ali and Gabriel Popowski, Helene and Mark Popowski on the birth of a daughter and granddaughter, Molly Page. It is with sadness that we note the passing of Stephen Greenberg, husband of Sandra Greenberg, father of Seth and Lisa, grandfather of Dory and Zach Hirsch and Max Greenberg. Condolences on the loss of Seymour Soledar, husband of Helena, father of Lauren and Jonathan Hunter and Zach Soledar, grandmother of Rhea and Lennon. Please note, the next time we recite Yizkor will be on Tuesday, Shmini Atzeret. The services are at 9. Yizkor will happen when it happens. And then this coming Tuesday night is Simchat Torah. There is an early dinner for families at 6:15 our services. 6:45 we have our consecration. We will be dancing with the Torah. There will be a Torah roll. There will be all kinds of food, at least 3 kinds of food and all kinds of drinks. So that'll be great. And then we'll do it all again in the morning on October 15th. Including an opportunity for anyone and everyone to have an aliyah. Looking a little bit further out, October 19th, Rabbi Bright is doing our synagogue blessing of the pets. So bring your furry friends, and there will be treats for dogs and the people who love them. Our next B'nai Torah Women's Rosh Chodesh will be offsite on October 23rd at 7. Our 20s and 30s are invited to tea and Torah at Rabbi Bright's home on Saturday, October 25th. Boomers are invited to lunch out at Seasons 52 on October 29th at 12:30. You've got to RSVP to reserve your spot. B'nai Torah is going to Israel in June. I predicted that peace would break out and reserved hotel rooms. Now we just have to figure out who's going. There is a form to fill out online if you're interested, and we are asking for commitments by November 1st. Should be great. Just a reminder, services tomorrow morning are at 9. Tomorrow evening they're at 6, followed by study in the sukkah. And our topic is 2 are better than 1, looking at the book of Ecclesiastes. We're going to finish up with Shalom Aleichem. On your way out, please place your books on the cart there, and we will have a chance to have Kiddush and Hamotzi in the sukkah before we disperse. And again, a Yasher Koach to the Rabbis K for leading us tonight. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu, Ba'arem HaShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi